These two TVs on, or you just had that one back there?
None.
Oh, okay.
That one must accidentally get turned.
Good morning and welcome to the special meeting of the Law Labor License Committee of Council City, Fort Thomas, Kentucky. I'd like to start by asking Matt Kramer to give the staff recommendations of our agenda items.
All right, thank you, Andy. Just so everybody is aware, this is a special meeting, which means we can only discuss the items on the agenda. The discussion of council committees was brought up a couple months ago by Adam and Andy. We discussed multiple ways to improve the current situation. One of the issues we have is no members of a committee are allowed to talk outside of a public meeting, which does kind of challenge the committee to kind of set a path forward, set some visions, or even discuss anything ahead of council meetings or committee meetings to kind of better prepare the staff to give what council needs to make decisions, which I think kind of prolongs some of our decision making. So currently we have 6 committees and 3 council members on each committee, and then we have 1 chair that chairs that committee. The recommendation from the staff is going to be to create an ordinance that outlines to keep the 6 committees that we have as is. The difference is we're going to have 4 members on each committee. That'll create a chair and a vice chair, and then 2 other members of that committee. What that'll do is allow the vice chair and chair to be able to discuss, again, kind of give direction for the committee, where they want the committee to go moving forward, what they want to discuss. You know, for example, for Adam's Public Works Committee, you know, him and the vice chair could discuss next year's street program and things we want to change. Right now, the only way to do that is to have a public meeting just to do that, which seems kind of inefficient. It'd be like the mayor and I only be able to discuss city vision in a public meeting. It just doesn't work that way. So the staff recommendation is going to be to keep the 6 committees, because I think they're all important. It gives each council member kind of a specialty that they can focus on during their term, but add additional person, which would be 4 council members on each one, which allows 2 of them to discuss things without creating a quorum. But I think it'll be a much better, more efficient way to do that.
Can I just ask a question? Along those lines, maybe this is a question for Tim, I don't understand the protocol, but the way it's set up now, let's say, use this committee as an example. So we leave this meeting and no 2 of us could discuss anything that was on the agenda outside of council, correct?
Correct. That would violate the open meetings laws.
Now, if there were 4, so if you have chair, vice chair, and 2 more, I understand that makes a quorum at the meeting. Is that why, because we had a quorum at the meeting, at the committee meeting, we are then able, or 2 of the members are able to discuss it outside of the meeting?
It doesn't really matter whether you're in or out of a meeting. If you're in the meeting, you're allowed to talk about whatever's on the agenda, or if it's a regular meeting. Outside the meeting, if, for example, if I had 5 of you or 4 council members in my office to discuss whatever upcoming project, that would be violating the open meetings law because it's a quorum. So if we had 4, two members of a single committee could discuss committee business outside of a public meeting and not violate that quorum. Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered your question or not.
It kind of makes sense. Maybe I'm just not thinking clearly this morning. But theoretically, 3 is not quorum.
A committee right now.
Well, 3 on a committee. You're right.
Yeah, the committee is created as 3.
I got it. Now I understand.
Yeah.
Now I
Other
understand.
than the voting party.
Now I understand.
Yeah.
It's quorum, that's all.
Okay.
It's simple. 1 more than the voting party.
Yeah, and I understood that when we're in the public and then we're talking about council as a whole. I was just not thinking about I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, how it's set up now, 1 member could talk to themselves, which I think happens a lot around here. But now we can have more than 1, which would be more beneficial.
We could also, we could also meet with the public. More than 1 member from the committee can meet with the public.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
So the chair and vice chair can meet with a public member that, is passionate about that particular committee without violating open meeting laws, which would be another benefit. So from today, like I said, we can have more discussion if there are any other questions on this, but the next step, if council approves staff recommendation of continuing the 6 committees, just adding a member to each one, which would be 4, we would just need today for the committee to direct myself and Tim to create an ordinance, which will be brought back to council to review, and it wouldn't be ready by Monday, but I was thinking about November 1st reading, December 2nd reading, and then January, we could start with the new structure of committees.
I was just thinking about this morning, I agree with making it 4, obviously. Is there any reason not to just make it everybody, that way you could have everybody's input on the?
I mean, Adam has brought up putting 6 on there. I think it's a little overkill. I think it allows council members to have a little bit more specialty, but you definitely could have all of them. I think 4 makes more sense and keeps a little bit of a specialty for council. I think that's I like to have the 6, like I've told you before, because it gives each council member kind of a specialty for their term, and I think that adds some value to their position, to where it's not just, we have an opinion on everything, of course, but it allows them to kind of give direction and have a specialty that they can learn from, and then throughout their career, if they do multiple terms, they can learn different aspects, so.
I personally think all 6 on there is better for that particular reason, actually, because then all 6 of us understand exactly what each committee does. Because sometimes when you get to council, we're asking a lot of questions about what exactly happened in that meeting, or what happened, or what went on. So it actually makes us all 6 very well nuanced in each individual department versus just 4.
Well, there's nothing that prevents council from doing that right now, but it does limit their scope, so they don't necessarily have to, they're not expected to be at every single meeting, which is a challenge for me to schedule a meeting to have all 7 elected officials at every meeting, right? So if it is 4, I could prioritize just the committee members, it would be a little easier.
Well, committees are legislative bodies, so you only have to worry about 6. And
What's that?
The committee is only a legislative body, right? So it's 6 people, not the mayor, it's not
Correct.
the legislative body. But not everybody always shows up to committees, so, it's, not everybody shows up to council, unfortunately, we did have 2 committees a month for a long time. I personally think 6 is the way to go. I do like the idea of 4. I like the idea of 1 more for all the reasons you said. I think you spoke extremely well on that. I like the idea of 6 too, because it doesn't allow for a strong committee. So if only 4 people show up and say there's 3 people that the city administration knows they're going to vote one way all the time with them. And I'm not saying that happens. I'm just saying it's a possibility. That's why people form committees, that this allows this not to happen. This means all 6 people are there at the committees.
Well, all decisions that come out of committee has to be voted by the 6, unless I can think of otherwise. But they all have to go to council.
Sure.
So you're always going to be voting
But
from the
sometimes
6.
those people aren't as engaged, so they just vote with how the committee votes.
One of our concerns
now-
was going to get a little unwieldy, having 6 people and having to schedule 6 people. And when you, when it's a situation where you're on that committee and suddenly you can't make it several times, I don't know that it makes for a good image publicly. So guys on that committee.
I don't disagree with that.
showing
That's a
up.
good argument.
At 4, you can be more of a tip of the spear and you're ready to go.
And that's the thing, all council members are welcome to come.
Right.
We've got additional ones here that aren't on the committee, but having it the actual ordinance, having 4, to where you satisfy the quorum requirements, I think it makes all kinds of sense.
Yeah, and I would agree. I understand what you're referring to, Adam, too, and there's some good merit to some of those points. I think that, I like what the city said and what you said, Andy. I think there is something, I've only been on this my 2nd term, but I feel like there is a bit of specialization, and it's actually neat to sit in that seat and have, 2 years or 3 years or 4 years of experience with Parks and Rec, for example, or any particular committee, and then, if you are to get reelected and you decide, hey, I had this experience over the last term, but I'm really interested in this subject that's going on in town. I'd like to be on this committee moving forward. I think that's a neat thing. And I do like bumping the membership up to 4 for the quorum purposes. And I still think, to your point, well, you guys have all said it, but, the ability council members can attend every meeting, and I think that for those who have the time, that's awesome. And in some cases, if it's an issue that's particularly important to you. If you don't have the time to make it, you'll find a way to make it, but you're not required to make it. And I think that, maybe I'm a little bit traditional, but I really like the committee model where, by all means, council come and participate as much as you want, but the requirement is to have the quorum there, for the purposes of moving forward efficiently. And ultimately, that's just a recommendation that comes out of the committee, and I think we do a good job as council discussing things as a whole at the meetings too, frankly. So I like the proposal. Long-winded way of saying that, I apologize.
I still like the thought of 6. Like I said, I think 4 is still better. The 4 gives all the power to the committee. If the committee, all 4 people vote, then it comes to council. The other 2 opinions don't matter. Regardless if we discuss it or not, they're not as important because this decision has already been made. And the idea is for us to make a decision as a whole. And I think it would streamline the committee, streamline our meetings, and make more sense if we did it all as one. There used to be 2 meetings a month until just a few years ago. A lot of other cities do a couple meetings a month, I believe. I just think it makes things more transparent, easier, and more efficient, cleaner.
What's more transparent about that?
That all 6 people are deciding something at one time in front of everybody versus 4 people deciding the decision that's going to go forward.
Okay, that's not my definition of transparency.
Yeah,
but-
Mine is everybody in the room that has a decision-making power discussing it in public, instead of 2 people not being here. So, that's just my thought. I mean, it sounds like, we have 2 other people here. What do you guys think?
I think it is hard to, ooh, that's loud. Let's get back a little. To get everyone on this there, to get 6 people there would be, because we went through that with the special meeting. So it was trying to find a day and we had to push it back, and I don't want that to happen. They have to keep kicking the can down the road because we all can't be there. Quick question though, if there's, for right now, for example, if one of you guys couldn't be here, can another council member sub in on that committee, or it's just scratched?
No, it would be,
We got
it would just be
meeting.
how it's created. So right now we have 3. But, since I've been here, we've never had a committee meeting that didn't have all the members, unless maybe there was an emergency at the last second. But when I schedule, I ensure that
They're
all
all
the
gonna be there.
committees are gonna
I just think the
do that.
scheduling could get hard with all 6.
It is.
Is my fear, yeah.
That would makes it more complicated, but that's why we were elected too, so
No, I
make time
agree.
to make these decisions.
Well, and I do kind of like the specialization. I like the committees I'm on, I know a lot about, but I do like and we can always come. That's why I'm here today, is to learn more about it. But I'm kind of leaning towards the 4 for now, and if we ever wanted to, increase that, we could. But I think scheduling would be hard, would be my biggest thing.
So you don't need a motion to move forward to...
Yeah,
We can do a motion, you can just tell me, it doesn't really matter. But like I said, it would just be an ordinance that Tim creates, which I'll help him with, and then, like Lawrence said, we can always change that one line in the future if we wanted it to be 6 at some point.
Well, I would say,
Try
go ahead
4.
and move forward with creating it.
Okay,
I think it's better than what we have is more.
Yeah.
okay, we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll plan have it for first reading for November, 2nd for December.
And just one question, Matt Warren brought up a good point that raised it. Under that new arrangement with 4, let's say there was a circumstance where we needed to have a meeting and for whatever reason you could only get 3 of the committee members there. Would you have that meeting, or would it just be dependent?
It would depend on the chair. I mean, that's generally what I ask
Okay,
is,
okay.
I ask the chair what their thoughts are,
With 4 people, it allows the person to talk to the other person that is not there to make sure that they have their opinion as
Yeah,
well too. So
correct.
that helps streamline that as well. So, not to stick up for your idea, but that was.
I appreciate that.
It all makes sense to have one more period, you know what I mean? That was the whole point, is to try to clean things up so that when we get to council meetings, that we're not having as large a discussion and we can I like the idea of meeting with the public as more than one too, I think we've all probably crossed the line a little bit here and there, but this makes things a little bit cleaner for the city.
Yeah.
Not unknowingly, you know what I mean?
It's correct.
It's
Yeah.
impossible not to.
Yep. And I think it's a good ad for the city. So we'll go ahead and move forward with that. Next on the list is, Andy, if you want me to keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
The next on the list is the Design Review Board ordinance change. This is had for first reading, so there's nothing really changed, but we had tabled this for further discussions relating to the resident or non-resident change. This is the version that staff's recommending, just based on council's input over the last 6 months, is to make it resident only, and that's annotated in the definitions for member, I believe, or is it resident? Resident.
And it defines it.
Yeah, just it defines resident as a citizen who owns, rents, or leases residential property and physically lives and sleeps within the city limits. The other big changes are, can we try to turn a couple mics off?
Yep, I got it.
Working well, but even with 8, it's still having trouble. So, okay, so just to run through the ordinance real quick to remind everybody, we took out all the really challenging language of skills paragraph, just to make sure that the resident member has demonstrated interest, experience in architecture, design, or similar profession. We made some changes. About the system. I'm doing a really good job myself. All right, we've made minor changes to terms of office, vacancies, organization. A lot of this is cleanup language, just like the title. It used to be Board of Design Review. We've never called it that since I've been here, so we changed it to Design Review Board, the way it should be. So a lot of this is just changes to what we actually do. The only other change is it does allow staff to make some minor approval or disapproval for things. It's on the second last page. And again, we've thoroughly discussed all this, but I just wanted to kind of bring it up to remind everybody. 3B, under review process, 36.014 review process. Under 3B, administrative staff may approve or disapprove a request minor in nature for the following items in Appendix 2 of the design regulations, design review and approval. So those are very minor requests that we can make without having a resident or a builder to go through that, 2 to 3 month process of applying here. And that's pretty typical of what we've done in the past too, but we just wanted to make it in writing now.
A couple questions. One is following the denial, this is on the back page of the application by the Board of Council. Oh, so it does go to the Board of Council. I'm sorry, I didn't read the paragraph above it. I can agree. So would the board go, after a decision is turned down, it goes to the Board of Council before it goes to
Yes.
Circuit Court now then?
Yes.
Okay, which is what I wanted. I think that's how it should be. So cool. I'm sorry, I read the bottom part, I didn't realize that.
I did the same thing when you said it, so.
And then the second part I noticed is in this particular one, and the only reason this becomes relevant is in the event the mayor fails to fill a vacancy on the board within 60 days, Planning Commission shall appoint the new member. We have a new member being appointed on Monday, and it's been over 60 days since it's been vacant. So did the Planning Commission make the appointment for Monday?
This hasn't gone into effect yet.
But this is taking that out. It was in there prior.
It shouldn't be, the reason I took it out is it's just because we should, this would.
Yeah, but
should be
technically,
easy.
it's an ordinance, so it's law, right?
We
So-
can, if that's something you want to leave in, again, I
No, I don't want to
think
leave it in.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the design review board doing this. I think they left in this because there are other boards that require from a state statute that you have to do that. But as far as we go on Monday, the appointment would be, due to the current ordinance we have, not be correct unless the planning commission made the appointment and not the mayor.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Well, if the planning commission wants to review his application, or review the applications and go through it, and make sure he's the right guy for the job, technically.
Think about it from there.
That's just a default, just like the governor, if something happens to the mayor and the council doesn't pick a new mayor, the governor would pick the next mayor. It's just, that's what that is. It's a default, is essentially if the legislative body doesn't do their job, this is the backup to that.
that the legislative body didn't do their job within 60 days. It's pretty clear.
Correct. So you want that to go to the planning, we can take it to the planning commission?
We can wait until this is redone, we can have a special meeting and redo this and then do the appointment, but the way that the legislative is written right now, 60 days after the
Okay.
appointment.
No, I'll send it, we'll remove from the ordinance on Monday and
I think
and send it to the planning
So make
commission.
sure, it doesn't- last time we
You all
lost
can talk
Dan
about it.
Gorman because he was
That's fine.
appointed through executive decision versus being appointed, so we could
I think it's
lose a
something we need to
potential
talk
person
about.
Okay, sure.
if someone has a problem with it.
Yeah, we can push that to the planning commission for this month.
I see what you're saying, the default if something happens, and that's why it's there, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
technically it is in there, so.
Okay. Any questions, any other questions about this will be first reading on Monday, unless there's any questions on that. Okay. And then the final item on the agenda will be the memorandum of agreement between the city of Fort Thomas and the school district. What this is, I've talked to a few of you, we've talked about the land changes that will come out of the soccer complex project. And instead of, the originally thought was that we were going to change the plat ahead of time and make all those changes. We all know how construction goes, and there might be some changes along the way. I feel like it's best, and we started going in that direction a month or two ago, to go ahead and have a memorandum of agreement that states what the property lines are going to be. But after the project has either significant completion or completion, the school district and the city will create the new plat to make it exactly the way it should be. As everybody knows, if you can see from Exhibit A, the lines are completely crazy. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And what I don't want to do is set it now before construction and then have an issue later. I'd like this to be completely accurate for decades moving forward and not the complication that it causes us right now, especially with the staff. So just big picture, Exhibit A is how it currently is, the property lines that is, and then I believe it's Exhibit D is how it's going to be at the end. It is approximately the same amount of land that we are swapping with the addition of South Park. That was one of the negotiations I had with the school board, is to give us South Park, which is that's that small soccer field that's next to the reserve motor pool. So in addition to just do the kind of the one-for-one land swap, I wanted them to give us that property too, just as kind of a gesture of good faith of us having to lose our one soccer field, and that way we can maintain that property, which they've agreed with moving forward, so.
Matt, I think that's a great idea. Just one stupid little question. The building up there at the top, the couple little places that are white, who owns that? Is that something, that doesn't change, obviously?
Where are you at? Which one?
Where the
Exhibit?
current restrooms are. It doesn't show.
I see that, yeah, I'm not sure why that's cut out. That might be a mistake.
Okay. There's just those little chunks where it's not blue or red.
Yeah, that is definitely their property,
Okay, all right.
and it will stay that way. Let me see if the other Exhibit A has that on there.
Yeah, it seems here the same and it's just white.
It must be, I believe that probably came from just the construction drawings, because that piece of it wasn't going to be touched. That's going to exist, so that's probably, this was created from the construction drawings, so they probably just left that out, but that'll be something I'll double check with them.
Okay, all right. I mean, at least once construction's done, to make sure that
Correct.
all that
Yep.
is cleaned up.
Any questions about this? Just to give everybody kind of an update on that project, the board did approve it. The board voted to approve this memorandum of agreement on Monday. This will be on Monday for our council. They will be putting this project out to bid here in the next couple of weeks, I believe. This will be one part, now that I'm saying that before I say it, the change I made, well, Tim made a lot of changes, I made a couple. If this project does turn into a multi-phase project, I believe it's probably going to be a two-year project, we're not going to pay all the money up front. I told, in here is, any money that we contribute is going to be broken down evenly by phases, so that way we're not giving them all the money up front. I want to make sure, just like I do with other contracts and deals, I never give them all the money up front. So that's the only other change in here, just to make council aware that if it does turn into, after the bids come in and if they decide to do it at multi-phase one, whatever that multi-phase is how that city contribution will be separated out, just.
Matt, real quick, is I like to have this on record as much as possible. Can you explain the reason why we're land swapping, giving money for access to this? Because I love this project. I think it's the future of our city. I went out to Brossart the other day to watch my nephew play, and they have a fantastic facility, and, you know, it's a school of like 600 students, you know what I mean? So, like, I think that our future this really helps our future out, and it allows us to have a nice venue for tournaments, but that we get access to it, right? Is that correct? Is that why?
Correct, yeah, so part of this is the school owns some of our road that we maintain, which needs to be cleaned up property-wise. The big reason I think that we are contributing to this is going to increase what the residents are allowed to use. This will continue to be open like the track is now. The difference is this will have flushable toilets now, which we've never had before. This will be a lot more ADA accessible for our citizens even to get there, to park and to actually access the track. So the track will be open year-round, just like it is now. The bathrooms will be open. They should be open year-round or at least seasonally, just like normal. So I'm not sure at that part yet, but at least they'll be open during season. There'll be easy access from South Park, so there will be a staircase that gets you down there easily. So people that are, you know, kids that are playing soccer and even the other field down on Lower Army Reserve, they'll have that facility in addition to the portlet there to use. The bathroom's been moved, part of the city's recommendations on the plans about a month ago. It was kind of deep into the complex, and now it's right out front. So it's really easy for, there's going to be two family-style bathrooms right at the very front gate. So it'll be very accessible for our citizens. It's going to drastically improve the parking in this area for our events, school events, you know, for 4th of July, merchants, all of our events here. This is going to be a really good add when it comes to parking, and much safer just because right now it's tiered. You know, people fall down that hill every weekend just because they, instead of walking on the concrete, they walk down there. But overall, it's going to be a really, really good improvement for that area back there.
The 24-hour access for us.
Right. So it won't be, that is one thing I'm going to change, because right now they have 24-hour access. I've asked them to put a magnetic gate, a timer gate on there, because there's no reason for people to be there. Right, but it is a good point to bring up that there's no reason for people to be out there after 10, you know. So we are limiting that just because I think it's more appropriate. It's easier for police not have to check that, and if somebody's out there at 2 in the morning, you know, there's no reason for them to be there. But no, that's a good point too.
Nothing good happens after 10 p.m. But when you implement those changes, I would just recommend to make sure that it's open early in the morning, because
Yes.
there are people who get up there before the sun comes up and utilize that space.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be 6 a.m. or maybe even 5 a.m. because the military uses this for their PT testing for their PT. So I mean, it'll definitely be early. But the time we don't want them is, you know, 10 to 4 in the morning. There's just no reason.
I close my stores at 10 for that very reason. I have a liquor store, so nothing good after 10, I can tell you.
Jeremy, do you mind if I ask a question?
Not at all.
Maybe a little late to ask this, but in this plan, is there any possible way they can work in tennis courts?
No. I've asked them to put, for the off summer season, to put pickleball throughout the whole thing, movable courts, but that was rejected as well.
Okay.
Have we, I know you're going to meet with Sergeant, hopefully,
Yes.
Come to some kind of agreement. Unfortunately, it doesn't always, nobody, both parties leave unhappy, it's probably a win.
Yeah.
Kind of like a divorce. So I say that all the time. Have we put any thought of what we're going to do down here for them or for that area?
Yeah,
I think that would be a great
that's a good thing to bring up. I did meet with the Sergeant Avenue crew last month. It was a really good meeting. Most of their concerns were already taken care of, just like we had expected. There was really only one point that we disagreed on, and that was Katie had said that there is plenty of parking for this venue right now, and I adamantly disagree with her. That was really the only part. I'm like, we have to move forward. Like, we're never going to agree if you truly think there's enough parking as is. This is a much better plan with a lot more parking. But other than that, it was an awesome meeting. You know, we agreed on everything. The one thing I would like to look at, and I explained this to Katie too, is adding maybe a small pocket park of some sort, just some small playgrounds, you know, right when you come out of Sargent with the new road. There's also, if you look at the corner of Sargent and Army Reserve, the purple area, if you're looking at Exhibit D, there's that corner there right before the wall. That might be a nice location. It is on city or on school property, but it might be a nice location for some swings or a small play set. But that's definitely something that I think I'll be recommending the council to do after construction, and I explained that to Katie, that I think that would be a good add for the Sargent community to have some sort of smaller playground there. And I have no problem, and I've told her this, that, you know, we want their input on what to put there. I don't have any issue. I don't think it'll be a big ask for council, but that is one thing I'd like to add on for council. The other thing is, and I talked to Andy about this yesterday, is a parking pad right outside of this like they have now. Katie and her group said that there's no need for that, but we have talked to other residents that live specifically right there at the entrance that do utilize that. So that'll be another add that, you know, let's just see how construction goes, and we probably, even though Katie says that they don't need it, I think it's probably something we need to consider.
Because there's only parking on the one
Yeah,
side.
it's very tight.
There's a lot of people right there.
Yeah, there's very little parking, and the road's so tight that, you know, if you have somebody with a work truck that's a dually, legally allowed to park on the street, wouldn't we prefer them to park here just to free that? Is there? Okay. So just for ambulances getting through, just for, I mean, really common courtesy for everybody else, it would be better for those type of vehicles to be parked there. So I think it would be a good add for us. Again, it's one of those, I want to wait till after the construction is done, because you just never know what might need to change.
I thought
during that.
you know, what about the AstroTurf that they're dissolving from the park, right? They're getting rid of all that right now and putting new down.
Correct.
So can we use that for the pocket park if it's small enough, or is that, you thought about it a little?
Well, yeah, we've, because we do this all the time. We talk about things like this, and a lot of times reusing things just becomes such a hassle when it's just easier to get it new. The problem with that is we would still need to build the underground part of it, and by the time you're spending all that money, I mean, this has reached the end of life. So you just spend all that money, and then then you kind of have that to work with. We do the same thing with mulch. You know, we have a place that has a whole bunch of used mulch, and we're considering taking that and using it for trails. But by the time you do all that and organize it, it's probably just easier. Yeah, it's just easier to buy new mulch. But yeah, we have looked at that, and those are the things that I appreciate, you know, citizens and council bringing up, because we may not have thought of stuff like that. So it's good to have that collaboration like we
I
have.
would just like a plan in place for this, at least some kind of drawings or something to make sure that we're showing them that we care, you know, so.
Yeah, and I think the next meeting with that group is just to kind of decide. First, I told them I didn't really want to get into too much, because I've had that conversation with council members, and I don't remember if I've told everybody that I think that's a good idea. But unless council disagrees with doing something small like that, I think it would be good for us to start meeting with them just to kind of get an idea of what it is that they would want there.
Yeah, thank you for meeting with Katie and her group, and I think it's important that we continue to involve that neighborhood in the conversation as we move forward. I think we all agree on that. And I know Katie's very appreciative too. She sent us an email last night. You guys probably saw it too. There was just one point on the email that I had a question about. It's mainly for my education, I guess, but she had some concern about removing green space for Fort Thomas soccer, primarily. And she mentioned that, you know, Kings Hammer is a tri-state group who has access to a field. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? Or maybe not?
That's a big elaboration. We did discuss that.
Okay.
She does, I asked her to check some of her facts.
Okay.
Because, I did have a daughter that was on King's Hammer, and her statement is it's out-of-town people, and it's not. I mean, my daughter's whole team that practiced on Southfield, South Park, and on the track every week, one day they were one the other, it was 100% Fort Thomas people. Now, when they have games, like I told her, yes, games, I'm sure you have one team that's outside, the other team is Fort Thomas. But before she starts saying all King's Hammer or just some Fort Thomas, I asked her to check that, because from my experience and from what I saw, they have teams that are solely Fort Thomas teams. There's a Woodville, Moyer, Johnson teams. So before we make statements like that, I just want to share some facts of that. Maybe she's right. I'm not saying she's wrong, but let's make sure that that is true before we say that.
Well, absolutely, and my concern really isn't that we need to restrict that field from people who don't live in Fort Thomas. It's more that as long as we don't have a concern as the project is completed, that we're limiting green space or space available for, Fort Thomas recreation leagues or soccer leagues or whatever it is.
Yeah, and we're removing the soccer field. That's why we're so quick at Highland Field to go ahead and we put soil down there to start that seed this year, so it'd be ready for the spring to try to kind of get that prepared. And that's why I'm always pushing for more soccer fields, in the park. I know we've had some spirited discussions on that, but I think that's important for us to try to keep the soccer fields, because I think that's really important for the elementary schools in our town, to have those students be able to stay here when they're practicing as much as possible.
And the Campbell County youth will still have the same access to the field as they do now.
Correct. And that's another thing, during those conversations, she made the statement that we shouldn't have to go outside of our town to play games and practice. And I'll agree, just because I want that, but at the same time, it's a county league, and they own Pendry Park, so that's why they go out. It's not a Fort Thomas league. If it was a Fort Thomas league that we had to go out, I would give it a little bit more to that. But just to understand that it is a Campbell County league, which is why they use Pendry Park, which makes sense for us to go out. What's that?
They fill both.
And they do fill both. So I think it works, since it is a Campbell County league. We try our best to have the Fort Thomas teams practice here, but understand that it is a Campbell County league, so it's okay if they're going, as long as I'm hearing that they're either in Fort Thomas or in Pendry, I think that's acceptable, because it is that league. But
We do have 17,000 people in town, so we got to make sure we have facilities for everybody. You know what I mean? So, and we're very unique in the amount of spaces we have that people get to practice on, and our place is pretty close too as well, so it's not just, one group.
yeah, and the addition of us owning South Park is we'll start improving that more than we have in the past. I have a hard time spending money to improve that field when I know it's owned by the school. I know it's not a ton of money, but it's just, philosophically, I guess, I don't like to do that. But now that we're going to own it, it makes more sense for us we'll have full control of it, so we'll be able to improve that field and add some grass and maybe some other amenities there.
Is there any other comments?
Do we need to vote on anything here, or we just?
Again, this will just, since we're having a meeting, it's just a good time to discuss this ahead of it, and we'll have it as for approval for the meeting on Monday. And then following that approval, that following week is when we meet with the school board, so I think it'll be nice that we all have that agreement complete, and we can discuss that and other topics.
Great.
Thank you for putting the time in on that agreement. Probably you too, Tim, as well. It's incredible to get that far ahead of the game. I think a lot of things were done with handshakes, which is fine at a certain point, but now we need to cross our Ts and dot our Is, so there's no contentious aspects to it later on, so we're all very clear up front what was going on, so I think that's a big change. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
On paper.
There we go.
Thank you.
It's at 30 minutes.